using this. Normally, they would not give you that number. Normally, they would make you calculate that 95,000. So at this point, we're going to be comparing what we use, which is 98,000, compared to what we should have used, which is 95,000. Of course, that's a 3,000 pound difference. So I'll write the calculation here. You take that $1 of standard price and simply multiply that by 3,000. So that'll give you a $3,000 unfavorable quantity variance. So again, this was an easy one now that you're looking at it, because you just have to know what you're comparing. So just to recap: price, you're comparing what you purchased, what price did you, and by the way, we're looking at the per unit prices here. Notice everything we put in this bottom row is in a per unit format. And so we've got price per unit versus the standard price per unit. And then, of course, when we get to the next side, notice we're comparing the quantities. And so purchase is based on, I'm sorry, price variance is based on purchased, and the quantity variance is based on usage. This one's an easy one. So once we do this first part, check mark that. Now they say, think of a plausible explanation for the variances found in requirement number 1. And this is where normally we would then talk about what causes these variances. What kind of things are you looking for? And it's going to be essentially the same stuff I talked about last time. What causes our purchase price? And think about it. You're going to have deals set up with your suppliers. You have farms. I often think, if just to kind of compare what's going on in today's society in the world. I just read something, and you guys probably saw it, with this meat that they're talking now, that there's going to be possibly a little bit of a meat source shortage because everybody's getting sick at these slaughterhouses, at these process facilities. And I don't know if you guys have ever gone to a Wendy's fast food restaurant. I used to go, I haven't been there in a long time, but apparently Wendy's differentiates them from the other fast food restaurants by always serving fresh meat. They don't ever freeze their beef. And so apparently, they're counting on fresh sources. They cannot get this fresh meat at some of their facilities. And so that could be, and if Wendy's is following some sort of standard costing system, they might have some bad variances based on trying to purchase meat right now for a lot of reasons. Prices could be going up. They could have deals that have been negotiated with suppliers, but at this point, all that's out the window, because now you've got the economics coming in. It's the supply demand. And so, and just read the news, the price of beef, if you go to the store and you eat beef, or eat really beef or pork or even chicken, you'll find that the prices are starting to go up just because of demand, supply shortages, and you got that demand. And so that's the kind of stuff that could start to impact. If you were looking at like a material price variance, that would indicate, that could hurt how much you're paying, whether it's per pound or per ounce or whatever. That could be a big thing, that something you cannot really control, but at least you're aware of what's causing that problem. Okay. Now, in this case, to try to figure out why they paid 85 cents versus $1, you just kind of review the purchase orders and talk with the purchasing managers and so forth, and probably figure out they probably got a better deal. Could be free shipping, could be some discounts or whatever. Somebody got a good deal. And so you'd say that's good. Now, on the other side though, the usage, notice they used 98,000 versus 95,000. What would cause that? And then that could be a couple things. And when we get to the labor, we'll talk about that. But not knowing what the labor variance is just yet, you might say it could be maybe the quality of the potatoes weren't as good, and maybe therefore you had to throw a lot away. I don't know. It could have been the fact that you got a better price, that maybe the quality is not as good. That happens. And if you have poor quality, then that means that some of the potatoes you might have had to throw away, and that would possibly cause this usage number to be higher than what you thought it was going to be. Now, keep in mind, I'm assuming when we're trying to explain these, that our standards are up to date, because that's something I just want to remind you. If you have not updated your standards, sometimes standards need to be looked at, benchmarks need to be looked at. And if you don't always evaluate them, then sometimes to do these variances, the variances don't really add up. They're not going to make a lot of sense if you don't have good benchmarks. All right, so that would be the first one. Now keep these numbers in mind, because these numbers, the price variance and the quantity variance, specifically the quantity variance, could be linked to the labor variances. So now, let me clear this. So now let's take a look at, this will be requirement number 3, which is the rate and efficiency variance. So let me put this one in. So we've got, go back up. So it says, I'm looking for the quantity of labor hours, which is going to be 2,100. Notice they gave you the rate was 1245. That's the actuals. And then the standard labor rate's 1215. They gave that to you. And the standard hours, standard quantity is 2,000. So I'm going to go back over to my diagram. I almost said Venn diagram. It's not a Venn diagram, but like if you're in a stats course. But we've got AQ, 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 SQ. Notice this exact same thing. AP, SP, SP, and SP. And then all I'm going to do now is just plug in the numbers like I read them. So the AQ is going to be 2,100 hours. In fact, I'm just going to do that for all these. The nice thing about the labor variances is AQ is always the same. Whereas with the material variances, sometimes you'd have to change that second AQ. Actual rate was 1245. I'm going to write that one right here. That's what they actually paid. And of course, you could access that just by looking at the payroll records. And then the standard rate looks like it's right at $12.15. So for this first one, and I'll divide these up. This first one, we are looking at the rate variance. And it looks like we paid 30 cents more than the standard, right? We paid $12.45. That's greater than the standard by what, 30 cents. So you'd take literally that 30 cents and multiply that by the 2,100 hours. And that gives me, it's a pretty small variance, but it's right at 630. And of course, you'd say unfavorable because you paid more. And then on the other side, I'll go ahead and copy over the standard rate. Again, 1215 is the same number, 1215. And then the standard quantity of labor hours is right here, is 2,000. Again, they gave that to you. All right. So we compare actual hours to standard. So the difference is 100 hours. So if you took 100 hours, multiply that by what, $12.15, that's going to give you right at, again, I'm going to write this efficiency so you know I've got this labeled correctly. That's right at 1215 unfavorable. There you go. So I'm just kind of put a box around these two answers. Those are both your variances for labor. And then it kind of goes back to the same thing. Again, look at payroll records. You could very easily say who's working. Overtime could be issues. Maybe they got to work more because of the poor quality of potatoes. It takes them longer to sort through them. I don't know. That could also explain why, in terms of they used what, 2,100 versus 2,000. Why did it take them more time to sort through the potatoes? It could be because they were poor quality. And if you got poor quality, it might take you longer to deal with your raw materials. And so that could explain why these efficiency variances and rate variances are unfavorable. Now, having said that, there's always a trade-off, right? And if you go back and look, we had, at least for the price variance, I'll write this off just to remind you. Remember, on the price variance for materials, that number was right at 14,700 favorable. Everything else, the usage on materials, all the labor variances were unfavorable. But guys, if you net everything together, you're still okay. You're actually still better off. So the fact that they got such a good deal on these potatoes, the question would be, would you continue to buy from the supplier? And the answer would probably be yes, because even though, even though you've got some unfavorable variances with labor, notice if we combine these, that's about what, 1845 unfavorable. If we looked at both rate and efficiency, if you added these together, of course, your labor's bad, but just the pure volume of it, you're still better off in terms of cost, just because of that. You got such a good deal on price. And that's the kind of game you play when you buy materials. You weigh in the fact that you could have quality issues, and that could affect the end product. But as long as your product is the same, it just takes you longer to do it. Bottom line is you're trying to lower your cost. Okay. Now, one more thing I'll say since I got this problem up. So those could be some explanations. Other explanations, and I know I mentioned this last week, I talked about the concept of theft, not to make light of it, but who's going to be stealing potatoes? But you just never know. But the idea is these variances quite often can also lead you to figure out if you have inventory issues. And if you do have, inventory issues, you need to kind of then take a closer look at this. This is something that, literally I would go out with the supervisor, and we did this every month. I had a clipboard and a list of items, and we'd walk around and I'd watch them. He would show me if we had packages that we had not unloaded yet, we'd still have to count them. Because remember, the concept of inventory affects your usage calculation. So the numbers where they say, in this problem where they just gave you at least with the materials, it was, let me go back up. What was that material number? It was 98. Okay, so 98,000. So the fact that we have 98,000 pounds of potatoes used, that one's an easy one, because quite literally, they know that whatever came in, came out. They didn't have any inventory, essentially is what they're saying. They used it all. But I'll tell you, this is about food. We were making data telewire, and we did have a lot of inventories and a lot of stuff that's desirable, like copper. We use copper. We had shipments of copper coming in. We had a lot of scrap copper. In fact, we had these big bins set up that just said scrap copper. And at the end of the day, they dump all the scrap copper into these bins. And of course, you recycle it because that stuff's valuable. And if you don't have people watching, people will literally take that stuff home. And we actually had people not just stealing inventory. We had people that would take equipment. Believe it or not, they'd take some industrial equipment, take that home. You'd be surprised at what people just take and they just load it up into their truck, thinking nobody's watching. And of course, now you've got video and you watch that. You don't want to do that, but it still happens. And you think about companies like Apple. They make the iPhones and the iPads, and think about, there's got to be control over those, because if you got a big box of iPhones and you don't have control over that, who's going to stop somebody from just taking that and putting that in their trunk and then go selling it on eBay? They can do that very easily. That. Think of the companies here in town like Anheuser-Busch InBev. If you drink alcohol, beer, people are always wanting to take free beer. And so I know years ago I had a student or somebody who had worked there, I knew a family member who had worked there, and the way that they helped cut down on the theft is they gave everybody vouchers each month. So you would get, like, for example, a free case of beer or whatever each month. And some people, they always say, wherever you work, you kind of get sick of eating the food that there. Some people got sick of it. They would give their vouchers to their coworkers. So some people might have 7 vouchers. They could get 7 boxes of beer from it. So what? But that was one way it helped them cut down on theft of inventory, because at the end of the day, you buy these raw materials, you produce, you then sell it to the public. But at some point in time, that theft or that loss will catch up with you, and that will cost you money. So that's what standard costing is really all about. It's you have your actual results and you're comparing it to essentially the benchmarks. Now, if you can understand this is making sense to you, and you can kind of follow, the stuff I showed you last week, specifically with all these, and of course the fixed overhead variances, those are the best ones that they got. You won't find any other problems in the book that are better than those. But if those are making sense to you, and then of course you're practicing, the My Accounting Lab homeworks, get those submitted, you'll be in good shape for this test. Now, I wouldn't wait till Sunday night to submit your chapter 11 homeworks. Hopefully you're getting those done now, because the exam is going to start on essentially starts on Monday. But let me do something. So I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to leave this for a minute, and we can always come back to it if you want me to. But now I'm going to go and just talk about the study guide. Okay, now I haven't released this yet. It'll be on Blackboard. In fact, I'll put it out there today. But again, I don't want you to worry about the test just yet, but maybe some of you are already starting to study for it. But here's how this thing is working. This is a brand new test. I just wrote it because, you know, typically you would take these exams on campus. So you're not getting my paper exam, you're getting an online exam. So it is online, it's in my accounting lab. Note it's going to be 50 multiple choice questions, and it's over chapters 10 and 11. And the way I tried to divide it up, it's about equal. It's about 25 questions from each chapter. I'm giving you a whopping 4 hours. You don't need 4 hours, but this, again, normally I would not do this, but you're getting somewhere. You can almost look at this as a curve in a sense that, you know, I would think most you can probably get this thing done probably under 2 hours pretty easily. So the time should not be a factor, but look at the dates. It's May 11th through the 15th. So Monday is the May, in fact, it's available beginning midnight, 12 a.m. on Monday, and you got till the end of the week, Friday, 11:59 to get this thing submitted in my accounting lab. I would not wait till Friday to submit it. The reason, if you wait that late, sometimes maybe the Pearson, it happens with any company, but sometimes they'll do weird maintenance, and you guys have probably experienced that already. And sometimes their systems, their websites will go down for a few hours because they're doing some stuff. So don't let that get you. And normally I think they do it on Sundays, which again, never convenient, but just watch that. And then of course, if you do run into a problem or a snag with your exam and something gets frozen, just, you know, email me. You know, I check my emails just about on the hour, every other hour, just about every day. So if you send it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll probably respond to you, you know, probably within an hour. All right, so that's the exam. Now, in terms of concepts, there's not a lot of volume. It's only 2 chapters. And so, you know, I think most the chapter 10, I think, was pretty easy for most of you. You had to do the ROI, sales margin, capital turnover, and we had the flexible budget. And I hope you go back and you look at either the Zoom recordings or the other recordings in Blackboard. I think there's some good stuff on there to help you review for that. And then, of course, everything we're doing right here with the standard cost, all these variances, material, labor, variable overhead, and fixed overhead. And of course, I think I spent last Thursday. If you go back and look at that handout that I went over with you on how to calculate that fixed overhead variance, that's basically, you're good on that one, in my opinion. Study suggestions, again, review chapter 10 and 11, learning modules, review any Zoom meeting recordings. And the nice thing about these recordings is when they're MP4 format, you should easily be able to fast forward back and forth. You don't have to listen to every single word. If you see a concept we're talking about, you can easily go back and forth with those. So you don't have to spend the whole hour and 15 minutes just waiting to get to a concept. You should be able to fast forward those if you have to. And of course, you know, any end of chapter exercises, any stuff that might pertain to any of the things we talked about on this exam. All right, so this will be out there. And then I haven't graded the projects yet. In fact, I haven't looked yet. I think most of you have at least tried to submit. What I intend to do, I think starting actually today and probably through the end of the week, is I'll go through, and I do this for all my classes, all my projects. I at least try to open them initially to see if I can at least look at them. And if I cannot open your project, then I'll send you an email. So be sure to check your student emails regularly within the next week or so, because let's say you downloaded your project and you think you're done with it, and then I go in and I can't open it, then I'll just send you a friendly email saying, just can you resend it to me, send me an attachment, and that way it doesn't hurt your grade. And So that's usually how I've done it in the past. Usually there's usually at least one or two, not for this class, but usually I have, of all my classes, because I have a lot of projects, I usually have one or two situations where I have to email the student. And it's not that they're trying to be hard, it's just that sometimes I don't use a Mac. And sometimes if they do something on their computer, if they got a different computer like an iMac or Mac computer, something with the formatting does not work on our Blackboard. It's weird. And so even though I do have sometimes I have to go to my iPad just to open up a file. I try to explain, I think they use some sort of Apple documents that's like similar to Word. Just, you can only open it if you got an Apple, but sometimes it's something else. And so usually what'll happen is I'll look at it, and if I can't open it, I'll email you a couple times saying, please get this to me as soon as you can if you get this. And so just, watch that so that doesn't hurt you. All right. But again, 2 chapters is not a lot of volume. And there's a lot of calculations on this test. It's 50 multiple choice. Let me get back up there. It's 50 multiple choice questions. Now, not all of the questions are calculations, but you have to do a lot of calculations. If you look at the 2 chapters, ROI, sales margin, capital turnover, flexible budget, of course, of all these variances. So there's a lot of stuff on those. And there's also, other questions on some of the stuff I've just been talking with you about with, why is the variance favorable or why is the variance unfavorable? So you should look at those as well. And, just don't wait until the last minute to try to take the test. I mean, that's just a suggestion. And maybe you can't take it till Friday, but, don't wait until Friday at 9 o'clock to take it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, since it's a 4-hour, I give you up to 4 hours. If you essentially, you all need to take it before 8 o'clock next Friday if you want to take advantage of the full time. I honestly don't think it'll take you more than 2 hours. I think if it's taking you more than 2 hours, you're just taking your time with it. I think it should be plenty of time. So then once you get it submitted by Friday, so then what I do then is I'll go in sometime over the weekend, because I believe our grades are due by Monday. So I don't have any of the grades calculated yet, because I got to get the test, and I've, of course, got to get your project evaluated. I'll get that posted on Blackboard, and then what else? And then I think that's it. And of course, and then I'll get the My Accounting Lab grade book posted and transferred over to Blackboard as well. So that way you can just look at Blackboard to evaluate your standing in the class. Okay. All right. So I got that in. Does anybody have any questions on what I just showed you on the test? You can speak up. Anything? Does it make sense?
Can we do one more problem for this chapter?
Oh, sure. No problem. In fact, I was getting ready to go back and do that. So are we okay on just what I said about the test, the instructions on what's going to happen next week? Are there any problems with that? Silence, I take as we're okay. All right, so let me change this. Let's go back then. So we're good on that.
So I have a question.
Okay.
So I understand the way that you've set the problem up, like how you're having us do this.
Okay.
But we go into My Accounting Lab, we have to do it exactly how they have it, right? So the final exam, we have to do that too, I'm assuming, right?
No. It's well, with the homework, because they force you to enter into that kind of like their formula sometimes. They force you.
Right.
No, the way they do their homework is more of it's like a step-by-step teaching approach as well. Sometimes you can't get to the next section until you've answered part A. Sometimes they do that too. But no,
right. So my question is,
okay.
Or with the sample problem that you show us, could you actually just show it to us side by side? Do you know what I mean? Like where it's like the formula, like I was having issue with, okay, I figured it out this way, but now I have like which pieces of this now go back into the formula?
Do you have a specific homework problem I can bring up right now? I can take a look. I'm gonna go back in. I can do it right now.
No, like I was able to do them all, but I felt like I had to. I felt like I had to learn it both ways, and I wasn't able to like see how it was side by side, if that makes sense. And I'm sure it's something really simple, but I really just needed the like, oh, this number is this number, this is here.
Yeah, hold on just a sec. Let me pull one up. I'm going to show completed problem. Let me find one. Tina, is it something like this in a way? Like on this one where it says this is one of the homework problems where it says calculate the direct material price variance. Is the variance favorable, unfavorable? And is this kind of what you're referring to, how they put it into this formula? Is that what was confusing you a little bit? Like here, like for example, if and it can, remember your test is all multiple choice, right? So let's say we got this problem, and let's say that I was gonna write it into my little AQ format, right? So if I did this this is again for the price variance right here. So if I did AQ, and then APSP, which is how I've been writing out this this is more of a vertical alignment. So again, if I go back to the problem, it says up here, hold on, let me change this. It says that they purchased and used 1,300 pounds of mixed berries, right? So that, again, the purchase and usage is the same. And they give you that the cost is $375. And then they tell you that they sold 5,000 smoothies during the month. But if I were to write that out in the format I've been doing here, I would say actual quantity purchase was 1,300. I would write that right there. The actual price they gave you was $375. I would write that right there. That's your actual price. And then the standard price is $4. I would put that like right here. And then I'd say we're comparing $375 to $4. Of course, that's less. That's 25 cents. And that's essentially what they're doing. I'm going to circle this part. That's what they're doing right here, is they're just showing you the calculations. They're saying actual price minus standard price. And by the way, I'm glad you brought this up. It doesn't matter where we come up with a negative, or I don't want you to worry about negative or positive, because you see how they're putting the actual price first here versus the standard price. So yeah, if you took 375 minus $4, you would get a negative 25 cents. And of course, we're really talking, I wish they'd put an absolute figure. You want the absolute difference. But the difference is 25 cents, which is what I would have told you right here. You would take that 25 cents and then multiply that out by the 1,300. And of course, that would give you the 325, and you'd say favorable. But you'll notice that even in their answer, they didn't put a negative or a positive, but they did put a favorable. Okay. And so going back to your state, when you're working this exam, if you've got, and I'm assuming that all of you will do this. I'm assuming you all have scrap paper, right? Anytime I'm taking a test, I'm gonna have scrap paper. You do not have to write it out like this horizontal format right here. This was just this, when I assign these homework problems, I don't create these, but they just want you to plug it into the actual formula. But that's why this is how I've always shown it. And it's just for teaching and learning. But what my hope is, and I don't know if this is where you're at, but I'm hoping that if you can understand, this stuff right here that I wrote out like this, that now if you go back and look at this, it makes sense to you. And that's the only thing. Eventually, though, I would say that if you were doing this every day, this is probably the way you would do it. You would say, what's my price? What's the standard price? And what did we buy? And you'd multiply it out, you'd get that 325 favorable. So this is really the way you'd probably do it in the real world. The way I'm showing you right here is more just to kind of teach you it's just my style, I guess you could say. It's just my preference on how to show you what you're comparing. And I think it makes it a little bit easier when you first are introduced to this. That's just my opinion. Now, if you take this, like, this is managerial accounting. Cost accounting would be a junior level class at UMSL or SLU if you were like majoring in accounting. You would do this exact same stuff because they cover the exact, but they would go into a little bit more depth. What they would tend to do at that level is that, and I can't really do it in this problem, but what they like to do is they like to give you the variance. They might say the price variance is 325 favorable. They may give that to you. And then the question might be, what did they purchase? That might be the question of the problem. And you might be saying, well, what are they purchased? Well, to understand that, you'd have to go back and ask yourself, well, how did you calculate that variance? And the way I've tried to show you here, I think it's easier for you to understand exactly how you're coming up with that variance. And all you'd have to do is go back and figure out, because there would be other parts to the puzzle that they would give you. They would probably give you the standard price. They would probably give you the actual price. And you could kind of go back and plug it in, and you could figure out that they purchased 1,300. But I think by showing you in this format, it's easier for you to kind of work it backwards, because that's usually the way they try to, not to say trick you, but for them to say, do you truly understand it, is they usually make you go backwards. I don't have you do that in this class. All right. Just not that you guys couldn't do it. I feel like, you know, just to learn the basics, I'm not going to teach you okay, let's trick you now. I'd rather you understand face forward, front first, what you're doing. And then I think more of that type of material should be saved more for an upper level, possibly even a graduate level type of an accounting class, where you're really thoroughly studying the backwards, the end, you know, doing it forward and more backwards. Okay. And the same thing on the like on this problem, it's the same thing on the labor variant. This one was that was price. And then of course, this one says quantity. Notice they say also known as the efficiency variance. I think I mentioned that before. They like to use quantity and efficiency interchangeably, but that would be the same deal. You know, if I set it up, you'd have, or write this one down here, you have the AQ, and then you'd have SQ, and of course, standard price. Remember, this is for the quantity or efficiency variance. And I believe it was 1,300. And then on this one, you'd have to come up with that standard quantity. And of course, it says they sold, what, 5,000 smoothies. It's a fruit shop. Each smoothie requires 1/4 of a pound. It says, I'm going to minimize this. I'm going back and just reading the problem. It says they purchased and used 1,300 berries at a cost. It says they sold 5,000 smoothies during the month. And so if we were to look at that one, you would set it up. And of course, your standard price was, what we say the standard price was, it was $4. And then on this one, you have your production number, I believe would be the smoothies, the 5,000. All right. So if you take that 5,000, where am I at? You take that 5,000 and then multiply that by the 1/4 pound. That's, again, I'm going to put 0.25. That's going to give you the 1,250. That would be your SQ. That's where they got this number right here. That's going to be that 1,250. Hold on just a second. Can you guys all see that problem? Is it better now? I had one question. I guess I wasn't sure. Can you guys see this problem that I have pulled up in the homework? Could you not see it before?
Before, all we could see was like the menu of all
really?
like the chapters, and we could see your writing. But it.
My bad.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Okay.
Can you guys see this problem now? where it
I
says
can.
home.
I can.
Tina, Hala, can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I apologize. Let me go back over it. So when I was reading this thing, I thought I had shared it, but I wasn't. That just, I didn't realize you couldn't see it. Again, just let me know if you can't see the screen. I'll go back and redo it. But you can all see where it says Hannah owns a fruit smoothie shop, right? You guys can see that now on the screen. Well, again, going back, if I were to write this in the format that I've been doing it, where I do the AQ, and then SQ format. And then I just kind of do it like this. Again, this would be really unconventional if you think about it, but this is just a method I'm trying to show you in terms of just kind of like some of the reasonings on what you're comparing. So actual quantity purchase was 1,300. I would plug that in there. The actual price was $3.75. I'd write that there. The standard price was $4. And of course, at this point, if you look over here, you can see the actual calculation is they're taking the difference between the actual price and the standard price, and then just multiplying that by the 1,300, which is right there. And that's how they would have come up with that 325 favorable. But Tina, going back, if this makes sense to you to do it like this, you can do that on the test. You don't have no problem. And I do not ask, in fact, I do not ask you in any way any of these formulas. Like, at least in terms of, they call it when it says determine the formula. Guys, everything here is a formula, okay? And I just kind of take that as a default. So that's more of a textbook question. I take these more from a real world standpoint of saying, hey, look, give me the variance. And the questions that I pick when I wrote the test, you should be able to set it up just like I'm doing right here, if that helps you. And hopefully, once you've done this a few times, you can get pretty quick with it. You just have to, and you don't always need all the numbers, but hopefully that'll make more sense to you. Now, again, on the second part of this, I'll just kind of leave this up. On this part, again, they purchased and used the exact same amount. So it was 1,300. The standard price was $4. And then the standard quantity, this was a weird one because they didn't say produce, but the production here was smoothies, right? So 5,000 times, when I say 0.25, that's 1/4, because they said that each smoothie takes 1/4 pound of berries. That's where they got that 1,250. So the number you see right there, that's how they would have calculated that. So then the 1,250 would go there. And then of course you take the difference, and that's how they get the $200 unfavorable, okay? And so, and I don't know if everybody's had a chance to attempt this just yet. Not that I'm trying to give anything away to you, but you can always just go back and practice it. I know I've illustrated this on the home, at least part of it on the homework illustration in Blackboard, so you can review at least parts of it. But yeah, if you can understand this part, you're good. All right. And this was problem. I just picked a random problem from your homework. Let me go back and look at another one. Hold on. Change that. I'll do a different screen share. Let's see. Let me go back. Once I get it pulled up, I'll make sure we're all on the same page. Hold on just a second. All right, here's another one. Hold on just a second. Let me enlarge this. All right, can everybody see that one where it says Streetsboro Ceramics? I tried to share the screen. Tina, I think I see your video, so I can. If you can't see that, just send me a chat real quick. But this is another example. Again, this is in your textbook. I'm sorry, your homework in My Accounting Lab. And this one says Streetsboro Ceramics produces large planters to be used in urban landscaping projects. A special earth clay is used to make the planters. The standard here, and here we go again. The standard quantity of clay used for each planter is 24 pounds. The company uses a standard cost of $1.96 a pound of clay. They produce 3,500 planters and so forth. All right. Notice again, they purchased 87,500 pounds of clay and used at a total cost of 168. Now, I'm not sure if this was one we had already shown you, but even if it was, I didn't show it. We didn't work it out, at least in this work solution, right, Tina? So, like, for example, if you can see how they're showing you this formula, right? This says determine the formula. And you can see where they've got, this is for the price variance. You've got actual price versus standard price. And then you've got actual quantity purchase. I'm just saying this is how you would calculate it, every day. But again, just for us, I would have written this thing out kind of like this. I would have said, again, if we were doing the price variance, I would have done AQ, and they purchased what, 87,500. And then of course the actual price, they didn't give it to us, but they told us that the total cost was 168. So if you get a problem like this, you would have to take the 168 and then divide that by the 87,500. That's how they came up with that $1.92. So don't always assume they're just going to give you that $1.92. Sometimes you have to calculate that. So I like this, just to kind of go back over this for a moment, just to remind you of just things you should be looking for. And the more prepared you are, you'll be able to get this test done much quicker, but you'll have a better score. The standard price they typically give, it was $1.96. They gave that one to you. That's the standard price. And so if I wrote it like this, I'd say we're comparing $1.96 to $1.92, which is what they're doing right here. That's 4 cents. And then literally 4 cents multiplied by the 87.5 would give you that variance of 3,500. Okay. And then the same thing for the quantity. You have what, actual quantity, and then you have standard quantity. And then of course the standard price, which is constant. That's what, $1.96. And of course, I think it was, they purchased and used the same quantity. So 87.5 is the same number. The only other question is what would be the SQ? And so they produced 3,500 planters. And then the input, they got to tell you somewhere in the problem, what's the input? I'm going back. It looks like it's 24 pounds. So you take 3,500, multiply that by 24. That would give you 84,000. That's the number they came up with right there. Okay. So again, hopefully you're seeing that, once you've done a couple of these, they're really easy. I mean, they're all the same, but it does take practice. It does take some repetition. All right. I can tell you that back in my day, the first time this stuff was introduced to me, they showed it like this. And they would literally write out these formulas like this. They would say SP times AQ minus SQ equals, and of course I'm just going back and talking about, because I can still remember learning this for the very, very first time out of school. I'm like, what is this stuff? And I'd have these instructors, they come up and they just write these formulas, they just plug numbers in, and we get the variance, and okay, now you're done. I'm like, what do we do? And so back in my day, we were all taught just to memorize. Okay, memorize the formula. Once you memorize the formula, it's like, okay, so I got into this habit of just memorizing everything. And it takes some practice, but I was getting pretty good at memorizing. And what I realized at the end of the day, though, and it always made me a little nervous, in fact, even going into my very first job out of school, was the fact that I'd memorized, because that's what it took, at least back in the day, to get through the program. I'd memorize, and there was a lot less focus on really understanding why. And I got to the point where I'm like, what am I really looking at here? And there was just so much volume at the time. Back in our day, to get your undergraduate in accounting, they squeezed so much into those 2 years, the 4 years. The way they do it now is so much better. I almost wish that I learned it. Not that I want to go back to school, but the way they do it now is most of the stuff that I did in undergraduate, they now do in graduate school, you know, and I seen it. So like the intermediate accountings, the cost account, a lot auditing, they made us all do that in undergrad. It was so much information. It just, you literally had to memorize to survive, right? So then they realized they were turning a lot of students off of accounting because a lot of people were dropping out. And so they got to the point where maybe we need to kind of make them stay in school a little bit longer, not just rush them through all these concepts, because there's a lot of stuff. And so they basically, if you were to get like a master's degree in accounting, you would essentially be spending more time on material which I think is good. Like, for example, intermediate accounting, we used to do in 2 semesters. Now they've extended it. So it's like a 4-semester class now, literally. There are 4 semesters, and 2 of those semesters you would take in grad school, just so you know. And so and then that just kind of wrap this around. That goes back to my point to, I don't want you to try to memorize anything. Now, by studying any exam, yeah, you're by default, you're going to be memorizing, but that's not the intent. The goal is for you, I'm trying to get you to understand. If you understand what you're doing here, I mean, literally, guys, this test is open book, open note. I can't, and so you could have your notes ready for this test. And as long as you know how to apply it, that's what I'm interested in. Because if you were on the job, that's exactly what you'd be doing, is you would be applying it to answer the question. Now, of course, you got to be able to read the question and understand what the question is asking. But again, that's by practicing and studying. That's what you're doing right now. Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know, Tina, did I answer your question? I mean, you had some good points on that. But the other thing to that, and I think I said this in class as well, when I give you these homework assignments in my accounting, like this is a good example. The fact that I don't write it out like this format, but the fact that you had to go back and now do it. So you've done this a couple different ways. And you may have been, man, I'm mad at Jeriga for making me do this. When you get to that test, guess what? You're going to be much more prepared as to opposed to not being prepared. And so the goal is sometimes it's, I'm not going to say I want you to struggle, but sometimes it's good to, when you come to a problem, to not know the answer right away. That way you have to go back and think about it. And that's just really the learning. And that's a lot of the stuff I had to do. I spent hours going, if I didn't have all this stuff back in my day. I didn't have access to the internet. We didn't have that back in the early 90s. And so if we wanted the solutions, we had to go to the library. And sometimes the instructor wouldn't put the solutions in the library. So if they didn't do that, guess what? I had to go then wait for the instructor to get to their office. And I'd spend time just talking with the professor in their office how to work a problem. And I'm sure they didn't like it because they want to do their research. But at the time, I had questions, and I didn't just have it at home where I could be working midnight and, okay, I just go play a video and I've got the answer. I wish I had that. That'd be so nice. But it did make me struggle. It made me work. And I can't say that, of course, the format's completely different. I can't compare today's because it's just completely different. I think the learning aspect of today is much better. And I think the profession as a whole is better for it. And I hope that it attracts more students. I think the profession lost some good students because they thought, I don't need this. It makes no sense to me. I'm going to go major in something else and do something else because I was completely lost. They used to use one class, intermediate accounting, as kind of like a weed out class. If you couldn't pass intermediate accounting like the first time, they had no sympathy. You're kind of like, oh, looks like you need to change majors. And I was like, what type of mentality is that? I don't agree with it. But that's just what happens is you run across people who have huge egos. These are people who, once they get their PhD and they've worked a little bit, they think that it's like the 10 Commandments, they're the law. Whatever they say goes, like, wow. And not everybody's like that, but I'm like, I had a few people like that, and it really turned me off. But I'm like, I was at a point where I didn't want to have to restart anything. And so I'm glad I stayed with it, because now that I've practiced in industry, now I've come back in education, I think I have a better perspective, at least in terms of what you guys need to be able to do. I did this stuff on the job every day. So it's like nothing for me. I've done this so many times, but if you're just learning it, it can be kind of intimidating if you have a lot of volume of material that are try to get through. And that's the thing about accounting, there's just so much volume. All right. So so that's a couple more problems I've showed you. Hala, is that kind of more? I mean, there's a lot. I've shown you everything. You know, the material variances are probably, other than the fact that you have to sometimes look for that actual quantity used versus actual quantity purchased, everything really works just like this, whether you're doing materials or labor or variable overhead, they all work out the same way. So that's why it just at this point takes, I think, just takes you some practice. Just practice these problems and take notes as you're practicing. Write some stuff down. At least that would be my suggestion. All right. Hold on just a second. Was there anything else? Did you guys want me to go back over anything else in this chapter? Have I covered at least enough to, I think, to be sufficient for you guys to be able to finish the homeworks this week? I'm looking at my time. I know I got about 13 minutes left, but I can put another problem up if you want. It's just, I don't want to keep you, I know everybody's got stuff going on, but I try to make it as that, if hour and 15, we'll do an hour 15, but I know that I've covered all the essentials. But does anybody have anything, any input, anything they want me specifically? The silence means you guys are okay? I can see Tina, but everybody else has their videos.
I know, everyone else is a gray square.
That's fine. I had to do this a couple, interesting. I had to, this is my evaluation year. And so I had to get, usually on our faculty evaluation year, for me, it's every 5 years, but anytime we do this, we have to have an interview with the dean, right? Or a meeting with the dean. And so mine was scheduled like in April when they shut everything down. So I emailed my dean. I said, so when are we going to, he said, we'll just do it over Skype. It's like, okay, no problem. And so I got this business Skype downloaded on my computer. And so I could do the audio, but somehow my video wasn't showing up. I could see my dean, I could see him, but he couldn't see me. And I'm like, here I was talking to the screen. And I've done Skype before, in other formats, but I was completely turned off from at least my business version of Skype because I could not get my video to work. And it's probably just me, but I couldn't find, usually just hit the button where it says video and it starts. And I tried that and I asked him, he said he couldn't see me. So it's either a formatting issue or a computer issue. I was, ticked out. It worked, but I'm like, yeah, this is kind of like the new normal. And I think I told some of you, I have the basic version. I didn't know how long we'd be doing this Zoom thing. So I could get the paid version, which I think they call it Pro or something. And it's only $15 a month. But I wanted to try this thing out first to see if I liked it. I kind of like it. And so if I have to do Zoom again in the fall, which who knows what's going to happen once the fall semester starts. Summer is all online, by the way. If you had planned to take any lecture courses through St. Louis Community College, probably through anybody, everything's online, at least until the fall. And even once the fall semester starts up, I don't think they know. I think there'll be face-to-face course. I believe there will be. I just think that it'll be like you have to wear a mask and there'll be that social distancing and they'll probably make sure that if you're in a classroom, you got to sit at least 6 feet apart. I don't know how they'll do it, but I don't doubt that they'll have something because I can't imagine them keeping kids out for the rest of the year. I got a couple little ones. I got a daycare that didn't close. So I got lucky on one of them, but my 8-year-old, he'll be starting 3rd grade. And he does his Zoom meetings upstairs. I'm down in the basement, but it's like, I can't imagine them not, even for the kids, not having some sort of plan to go back in the fall. Because I think it'll happen. I just don't, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's some sort of hybrid format too, if they go for 2-3 days a week. But for some of you who are parents, you're like, well, I got to work. How's that going to help me? I'm almost rather they just be home than to have to send them at 8 in the morning and pick them up at 1 o'clock or something. That doesn't make, I was watching some of these things they were talking about. Some places are talking about, well, maybe they'll have shifts. They'll have some kids go in the morning and then some kids, and I was talking to my wife, I'm like, that is stupid. How does that really help a working parent if you're trying to get back to work Now you're stuck even more. You really can't go back to work either. You go back to work for a half day, it doesn't make any sense. So hopefully our leaders will think about that and say, hey, look, if I would rather either go back or you don't. Either say we're gonna try to go back in a safe way, and if we don't feel it's safe, then wait until next year. I'd rather them do that than to do this partial. Let's go half days. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I'm a parent, so I mean, it's stuff we talk about, and you want them to be safe. You don't want them to just send them back just to send them back. But I don't know. This thing's crazy. You watch, it seems like it was every week you'd watch something new, or every day they come up with a new announcement or a new rule. But I think they said the city's supposed to open back up. Is it May 18th, I think? And that's just going to be gradual. That's not going to be everybody, by the way. That's just the guidelines are being loosened a little bit. I think it may be maybe June or July even, but who knows? We'll see what happens. You can only control what you can control, right? I can't control that, right, Tina?
No,
Okay.
well, and it's hard to say, okay, we're going to go back in stages. Well, that's great. Whatever the first stage may be, but what are all those parents going to do for childcare? Like you think of like the camps, it's like, okay, everyone go back to work. Great.
Yeah,
but what are we supposed to do for, with kids?
Yeah, we've got, we had signed up for the Y camp for at least like 3 or 4. Ours was supposed to be in July. Now the Y actually they called us or emailed us and said they're still planning on having camp. It's like, okay. And of course, that's July. Now they said how that will look like, they don't know. Now, if it's one of these virtual camps, I'm not going to pay for a virtual camp. Sorry. I mean, I'm not going to pay a couple $100 a week just for them to watch this. No way. And I saw something on the news the other day that talked about how like Science Center and the zoo, they have camps for kids. They've canceled them. I've heard about the Magic House because I know the Magic House does camps too, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I think it's going to be varied. I think you might have some places that might do it and some people that might not. I don't know. I can't really worry about that right now. Yeah, what do you think, Tina?
Yeah, I don't know. I know my kids' overnight camps have been canceled. But even before that, I was like, it's in the middle of Illinois. And I told my kids, even if they have it, you're not going.
Yeah.
I'm not going to send you when people from all over Illinois are coming and germs are everywhere. Like, there's no way. Now, day camps, I feel a little differently about because you're not necessarily eating and sleeping in the same spaces, Yeah,
I've got an 8-year-old and he's always putting his hands in his mouth, and it's just we're always, oh my gosh, please. Right now we can control it because he's home, but oh my gosh, you go out into the public. Sure. Of course, don't take him to the store anymore. It's just me or my, but it is what it is. But all right, guys. So I don't know what else I can really show you. I know we got some time left, but it's like I've literally covered the Zoom meeting. I think probably the best Zoom meeting for this chapter was on Thursday of last week. If you go back and play that Zoom meeting, you'll find that I illustrated how to calculate not just the material, labor, and variable overhead variances, but also the fixed overhead, where you had the budget variance, which is the easy one, and then of course you had the volume variance. And whatever I showed you last week on that handout, if you can do that, you're good for the test. I don't ask that many questions on the volume variance. That's the weird one. In fact, that's the one they don't even ask you that on the CPA. They do not. There might be a question too on the CPA exam, but that's more of a higher level. That's a difficult concept because we really need to spend a lot of time just talking about why that is. But it's more of a capacity efficiency type of variance than anything. The fact that you have to understand fixed cost, and then if you maximize production, typically your cost per unit go down. That's that idea in that one. But I would suggest, in terms of just to recap this, if you go back and review that Zoom meeting recording, and of course review my other illustration. Let me share something with you guys. So if you go back into, here it is, I'm on Blackboard now. Go to the Zoom meeting recordings, and I'm clicking the button. And if you got, my internet's a little bit slow because, if you guys know anything about internet, I got a couple people, my wife's on the internet now, and I think my kid might have a meeting. So I got a couple things coming up saying my internet was unstable because too many people are using it. But hopefully you can see this. But if you go back and you got, I guess that was April 30th meeting. Yeah. This meeting right here where it says April 30th, that's a good one to go back and review because I believe it covers a lot of those variances, all the variances, again, you need to know, just like I just showed you now. If you do that, and then of course, go into the learning modules, I'm gonna click that now. And chapter 11, again, my computer's slow, but hopefully you'll see here that I've got my audio is an MP4. I converted them all. I've got more textbook illustrations. Those pretty much, those are good. You can play those. Homework illustrations, which some of you are doing in the middle of that right now. I had to separate it because the size was taking me forever. I couldn't fit it all. So I had to do these in 2 parts. And then of course, the handout, I don't have it illustrated, but I did that handout in that recording. This handout, I believe, is in that April 30th Zoom meeting. I showed you how to work some of it. So I would do that. And again, go back. This was what, chapter 11, and then go back. And also you got chapter 10, which probably of the two is, it's probably the easy chapter for everybody, but you still know how to do the calculations. So here's the chapter 10. Again, same thing. I got my PowerPoint, my lecture, I got the illustrations, textbook, and then of course I've got the homework as well. And then these, I'm pretty sure I went over in the Zoom meetings. I think that's how I did it on that one. Okay. All right. Other than that, guys, so we got the I think most of you have, at least if most of you tried to submit the project. I haven't checked yet. I'll check today. I'll email you if I get to your project. If I cannot open it, you'll get an email from me, and I'll just say, please resend it. I'm not going to, penalize you, but just I want to make sure I can give you, do an evaluation on that. You've got the chapter 11 homeworks and quiz due by Sunday, if you haven't done those yet. And then the study guide that I just shared with you earlier. Well, let me go pick that back up. The study guide. I'll post this on Blackboard today. It'll be up. You can go back and review it. But just to recap, it's chapters 10 and 11. It's 50 questions. It starts on Monday, so you have till, and you could take it any day, Monday through Friday, right? It's due by Friday. If you're in the middle of it and something happens and your internet goes down and you can't get back in, let me know. I'll work with you on that, because I'm always checking it, because there's always, sometimes stuff happens. Pearson, like I said, sometimes they take the website down to do maintenance. They do that a lot. All right, so you got that. And then once you submit this exam, just what I would do is wait in terms of grades. At some point in time, this will be the week after next, I think starting on the week of the 18th, is I'll get all your points downloaded into Blackboard, and I'll have a grade distribution set up so you can figure out what your grades are. And of course, if you have questions, you can email me, but don't email me until that week, because I'm in the middle of trying to get everything calculated as well. But I will get all your points and stuff transferred into Blackboard, so you'll know, at least you'll know your point totals. And then I'll give you the updated grade distribution in terms of how to determine your final grade. Okay. Good. Tina, Hala, Omar, Pierrette, we good? Yeah.
I'm good.
Great. Omar, awesome.
Yep.
You guys taking some more classes in the summer? Anybody taking summer classes?
Yeah, I do
Here?
have to take a couple classes over the summer.
No, I didn't take any class.
No, nothing?
No.
I think, guys, I think that they were doing something, and I don't think it's going to pertain to you guys, because I think you guys are good. I think you'll make it. I think, in fact, I think everybody in this class, I'm not giving anything, is going to pass with a decent grade. But there are some situations where students, they were giving you an option to drop the course and then possibly retake it for free in the fall.
Wow.
And so I'm not sure where they were at on that one, but I thought, wow. And some students may do that, because of this is for the face-to-face students, but yeah. So if you take summer classes, at least at St. Louis Community College, it's on. I think, in fact, if you take anything this summer, I think UMSL, if you're going to university, UMSL, SLU, I think everything's doing it online, except for, I can't imagine how the medical school would do it. I have a brother-in-law who is he's like a fifth year pharmacy student, and all their stuff is online now. And he was telling me some interesting things going on he's at the pharmacy school here in St. Louis. And he was telling me some stuff that they're doing, and they changed everything to pass fail. I couldn't believe it. This is at a high level. This is like, that's only for this semester because, you know, people didn't like learning at home. It's crazy. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm past the time. So I'll end this in a second here. So I'll get this thing posted, this recording posted. If you want to go back and review it later today or whatever, it'll be on Blackboard. And then anything else that comes up, just email me and I'll try to answer as quick as I can. So, all right. Sound good?
All right, thanks.
All right. I'm signing out.
Have a great week,
Thank you.
everybody.
All right. Good luck, guys, on your studying. All right.
Thank you.